Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Friday. And if you're watching the replay, good day to you as well. We're starting a little bit early, so I'm going to give people time to join just a minute. Usually we start right on point, but I realized that sometimes people got to scramble and they didn't realize that we were going live. So I wanted to give you space and grace to join us as you see fit and as your schedule allows. But today we're really talking about something that's very important, especially now with return to office mandates and hybrid environments and all the uncertainty that's happening. We're talking about how to create environments that people actually want to work in. And I'm bringing my friend, Dr. Danielle Lombard Sims, here with me today. So I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself, Danielle. Tell everyone why this topic matters to you. Talk about a little bit about the work you're doing. Then we're going to get into this. So I will open the space for you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So, as Jevon said, my name is Dr. Danielle Lombard Sims. I'm an IO psychologist and the CEO of Talentergy, where we work with organizations to really foster the idea of having an inclusive work environment where people want to work. So, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I spent 29 years in human resources, 15 as a chief HR officer, working in various industries, and formerly an executive partner with Gartner. So I'm really looking forward in having this conversation with all of you this morning.
Awesome, awesome. So as you heard all of that, right? So now we're going to kind of leverage all of that expertise because this is a conversation I'm asked about a lot. A lot of people. Let's start first with the return to office mandates and how that has kind of impacted both the employer and the employees, and what you would recommend as someone tries to implement these RTOs. Like, what are some of the steps you would take if you were guiding them in their strategies?
That's a great question. First and foremost is the why. Most of us have seen a TED talk by Simon Sinek. We've gotten away from the why. So a lot of people are getting the what, which is I've got to get back into the office, but they don't understand the why. And when you don't explain the why to employees, what you're actually doing is saying, we don't trust you. We don't trust you to work from home. We don't trust that you're going to get the work done unless we've got eyes on you. So we're making you get back to work. When in honesty, that's not always what it's about. I've got a lot of clients that are saying, Danielle, we're missing deadlines, or this is a project that really requires everybody to be in the room, to hear the same things, to not be distracted. So we want them back in the office. So what I've told my clients are a few things. First and foremost, have policies that while if you're going to require them to come back to the office, have understanding of the why. Is it because of certain projects, certain brainstorms that needs to happen? What is creating the need to get us back into the office? Start there. And then ensure that you have the space and wherewithal. During COVID, a lot of businesses found, hey, we can do more with less. We can get rid of some of these leases. We don't need some of these things. So I've had companies say you've got to come back in the office and they don't have space. Again, that says we're not ready for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So make sure that you are prepared to have these employees back in the office. Again, make sure that you've got some type of engagement to where they understand the need for them to be back in the office, back together again. The third I would say is still allow some flexibility. So having a return to office mandate is fine, but I would do so with the understanding that humans come to work. Okay. These are not people that can check themselves out at the door when they leave their home. They're humans. They have human needs. There's things that's going to occur outside of work. So yes, you can require them to come back, but with flexibility. What does that look like? Maybe it looks like you saying, we need you in the office 3 days a week. The other 2 days we can be flexible. Or if something comes up, yes, you can work from home, but work with your manager first, so that it's not so rigid. So that, again, we're treating adults like adults and not like children with check the box exercises. This also, again, brings back the trust that, leadership trusts me to make the right decisions, to be in the office when I'm supposed to be, to not necessarily have to be in the office. If I'm going to be on Zoom calls for 8 hours a day, is it really necessary for me to be in the office? It gives that worker, that employee, the autonomy, the empowerment, the value that I'm trusted, I'm valued, I'm seen, and I know when I need to be there and when I don't need to be there.
I love everything you just said, and that trust piece, I mean, is huge. And you mentioned a huge complaint about this is not that people don't want to go to the office, but understanding why they need to be in the office. Because there are people who do work better when they have that space. They're siloed, they're able to focus. They don't have someone stopping every 5 minutes to their office or cubicle area, so they're not distracted. But then there are the other people who are like, I just need that social. I just need to be able to
That's
talk to
right.
someone, say, hey, Jill, I need your perspective on this, and etc. So, how do we make sure like we're balancing if there are folks who are not joining in the office? I hear the complaint that a lot of remote workers feel like they just get overlooked for promotions and everything because they're not in front. So how do you balance that if you do say, hey, we're going to have some people some flexibility there? Some of you, we understand that when you took this role you were not close to one of these offices, so you're just going to be remote fully, but they're feeling like they're getting overlooked. So what are your recommendations on that?
So it's twofold. It's both on the organization, the leadership, and the employee if that's occurring in the workplace. So I'm going to focus first on the leadership and the organizational responsibility, and then I'm going to shift over to the employee. So
Mm-hmm.
from a leadership responsibility, I had a hybrid workforce after COVID. We were all went home, and then slowly and surely we started trickling back into the workplace. Couple of things. One, I did make sure that those that were joining remotely were part of any engagements that we were having face to face. So always made sure from a technical standpoint, they were able to engage, they were able to do breakout rooms, they were able to do the same things as if they were in the office. I also made sure I had one-on-ones with my virtual staff, similar to what I was doing face to face with my face to face staff. And third, sometimes in the office, those impromptu things happen.
Mm-hmm.
You might overhear something and say, hey, I have an idea about this. When those impromptu meetings occur, it's important to re-engage back with that virtual team and say, hey guys, in the office today, this happened. I want to bring you up to speed. I want to make sure that you don't feel left out. If you have any questions, let's jump on a call. So again, it is on the organization and the leadership to do what they can to ensure that those that are remote feel as connected as possible. But now I'm going to turn it over to the employee because
Okay.
the employee has responsibilities too. This is not just on your leadership. This is not just on your organization. If you accepted this role, understanding that it was a hybrid role or a remote role, you knew going into this, there may be opportunities like what I just discussed where things are happening in the moment and
Mm-hmm.
you may not be part of the conversation. You may not be engaged. It is also on you to say, have I missed anything today? Is there anything that happened that I need to be involved in? When you have your one-on-ones with your leader, ask those questions. Was there anything that happened dynamically that I may have missed that I need to make sure that I'm part of? Own that responsibility for yourself. So if you're feeling I'm not getting the promotions, I'm not getting the visibility because I'm not in the office, another thing you can do as an employee, raise your hand.
Yes, indeed.
Say, hey, here's some skills I bring to the table, or here's some skills I want to develop. Are there any projects that you're thinking about or working on where I may able to contribute in order to grow in this skill set? Whether you are in the office or whether you are virtual, leaders will appreciate that. I can tell you as a C-suite executive, there are always projects. There are always things
Yeah,
that have to
indeed.
get done, and there's never enough people to get them done. So when you've got someone volunteering because they want to better themselves, they want to grow in their skill set, that is a huge win. And so regardless of whether you're right there in front of me in the office, if you volunteer, if I give you something to do and you do a good job, that will elevate you. Now, I will say this, the higher you go in organizations, the less likely you will have a remote or hybrid responsibility. You
Mm-hmm.
more than likely will need to think about that. If I want this promotion, it might require me to relocate. It might require me to move. It might require me to come into the office more often. But if that's truly what you desire, you can set that up for yourself. You don't have to wait for someone to knock on your door. And in fact, I wouldn't even recommend that. If you want that door to open, you better start knocking.
Open it. And I love what you're talking about here, Danielle, because it just reminds me of like I'm hearing three themes that have been reoccurring. One is communication. Communication up, down, and all around is very important, from the employee and employer perspective, manager, leader, and the subordinates perspective. And I feel like that's something that's missed a lot. Like we all have to be communicating. The onus is not just on the leader by title, but leadership is the capability ability to influence. So it has to be that you feel like you're leading in some form or fashion, no matter what position or title you hold. And then the second piece that I continue to hear is being, taking initiative, being proactive in your success, ensuring that you're not sitting there twiddling your thumbs, but looking at opportunities to add value. And that's something Jocko Willing talks about, the principle of extreme ownership.
Yeah.
And for me, that's always something that comes up in every conversation, because you have to ask yourself, what part can I play? What
That's
can I do? The leadership, like you said, has a million things going on in their minds and their brains. So if you can contribute an idea and say, hey, I'm willing to take ownership of this,
that's
they're
right.
going to love you for that. And
That's
even if it doesn't start out as a fully fleshed out idea, but you're saying, hey, I'm thinking about this, I noticed this gap, and you provide some information, that may be something that could be your crown jewel exercise that gets you that visibility, that gets you in front of those people so you can move forward. And, ownership, that third component is the ownership. You have to take ownership not only of your career, but also of your contributions.
that's right.
So no matter what position you're at, no matter what position you're in, think about how you can own it and how you can best support and contribute to that organizational goal. Because everything we do at the individual level, at the end of the day, should align to organizational goals.
That's
So
right.
I'm loving that you're talking about this relationship of it, not just being the onus of the leadership, but also being able to manage up and lead up to say,
That's
hey, here's some things that you may not be able to see because you're so focused on the strategic perspective, but from a tactical standpoint, here's how I can contribute.
That's right. And, I'll add to that. Oftentimes, when you get into leadership roles, you are at that strategic level. So I may
Mm-hmm.
be seeing things from a visionary standpoint, but my employees are doing the work. They may
Exactly.
be seeing some operational things that I'm missing. They may be seeing some opportunities to streamline, to add value that I'm missing. So co-creating those strategies with your employees is another way for them to have their voice and for them to, participate in the conversation. Just when you were talking, I just thought about when you're talking about ownership. I had just recently, I had a client, their engagement was around 43%, 45%. They just couldn't move the needle. And they
Mm.
were like, we're doing action plans, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I said, you're doing action plans for your employees or with your employees? And they
Mm.
stopped. And they said, well, every leader has to do an action plan. I said, didn't answer my question. Are you doing them for them or with them? Because the last time I heard it was called employee engagement, not leadership
Yes.
engagement for their employees. So what are you doing? And give it back to your employees. Ask them what needs to happen for them to be more engaged, and then assign it. Say, okay, who wants to lead this? Who wants to own this? You said something very important. You don't need a leadership title to lead. Okay. You don't need a leadership title to lead. You can lead before that. I became a C-suite executive at the age of 35 because I didn't wait for somebody to give me a title to start leading. I saw opportunities and I took them and
Mm-hmm.
I led them, and people saw that. And the next thing you know, I got promoted. So, yes, if that is your desire, do not wait for those opportunities. Those opportunities are all around you. Find them, promote them, and go forward.
100%. And something is to be said, because now we're both in the entrepreneurial realm, right?
Yeah.
Running these training and development and organizational development type of programs. And one of the things that can be taken from the entrepreneurial mindset and applied to the corporate space is that perspective and standpoint of not waiting, like of
Yes.
saying like, hey, I'm going to take action. Of course, it's going to be, we're going to think about it and process it, but we're not going to just sit on something, because we understand things don't just come to you.
That's
You
right.
have to move forward so it can meet you, in that space
That's
when it's supposed to meet you. And I really feel like a lot of organizations, that's where that employee engagement is struggling, because the leaders are saying, hey, we're going to give you all of this stuff, and we, like, again, that trust, we're
yeah.
showing that we don't trust you enough, or we don't trust ourselves to trust you enough to allow you to take ownership of your space and create and innovate and do things your way, and tell us what the gaps are that you're seeing day in and day out, so we can be better together. And that's what leadership needs to start doing, like relinquishing control again and
Yes.
saying, here you are, you're an adult, right? We hired you for a
Yes.
reason. We're going to challenge you to just contribute in your own way. And by the way, if you do fail a little bit and fall a little short, we're still failing forward. We got to give that space, right?
That's right. That's right. You know, Jevon, one of the things that I work with my clients on is this idea of psychological safety, which I'm sure you've heard about. Amy Edmondson talks about it a lot. I read her book back in 2012, and I still reference it today in her book, Teaming. You
Mm,
know, you have to create the environment of psychological safety, but it starts with trust. You know, you have to empower your employees. I don't know about you. I learned more from my mistakes than I did from when I got it right. You know, it's
absolutely.
like, those were the opportunities for me to improve, to find different solutions, to look for alternative options. And we don't always do that for our employees. When I manage, especially first time managers, the hardest part for them is to delegate. Why? Because as an individual contributor, I got here doing this, so this is the way my employees need to do it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You know, your employees might have a better idea. They may have a different idea, but it may be a better solution based on today's world. We can't apply yesterday's thought process to the future of work now, you know, because AI is here, technology is different, the world is different. So we can't think, oh, well, my 29 years of experience is going to help me move forward. I've got to engage this new talent. I've got to engage my employees in understanding the world today and how we can all move forward. And like you said, better together. I love that.
Yeah, and it's. I'm so glad you just said that because the way of work is changing. The future of work is now,
That's
and
right.
if you think that what you did 30 years ago is going to get you through this next iteration, you are sadly mistaken. And I think that what you said about that when you were 35 and you became a C-suite executive because your initiative and all that stuff, now is the time to start looking at that talent at no matter regardless of age, but looking at like, hey, here's an opportunity for us to take this person who probably knows AI better than us and see how they can leverage it in their work and see how they can improve processes and improve our efficiencies and all these other things. I don't think that we're leveraging that enough in the organizational spaces. So this is, I feel like we can have a conversation all day, every day about how to create an environment, but it keeps coming back to this ownership and give people opportunities and challenging them properly to grow.
Yes.
So what say you like? I'm sure there's some leaders out there. We have a good amount of people watching live. We have over 1,500
Good.
folks watching live. I
Good.
need to see some comments in the chat, y'all, to make sure I understand what y'all thinking. And because Danielle, as you can see, she knows her stuff. So we got to leverage all that wisdom. But when we think about this, how can someone, who may be a leader and they're like, I want to do these things, I want to give that ownership, I want to take a chance. Where do they start though? How do they, just select one person maybe and just say, hey,
Yeah.
we notice you. Here's a project. How do you do that as a leader?
So I'm going to back up a little bit and say it starts with self. So as a leader, you have to know and understand yourself.
Mm,
So if you're not already doing that, what's stopping you? What's preventing you from giving other people this delegated responsibility, from empowering others, from having that autonomy? What fears might you be bringing to the table that's, not enabling you to help this? Is it a new team? And you're like, well, maybe they're not ready. Well, then what do you need to do to get them ready? So you got to take that step first. You have to have that self-awareness. If you haven't taken an emotional intelligence assessment, I strongly recommend it. It's going to give you that background. It's going to help you understand, what is it about me that's not enabling me to enable others. That's where it
mhm,
starts. The second piece to that I would say is to start. You said it, Jevon, just start. Pick a person, pick a team. Find out in your one-on-ones. If you're not doing one-on-ones, please make sure that's part of your normal regimen, is to do these one-on-ones with your team. Ask them, what types of things are they interested in? What types of projects might they have an interest in? And then trust them with a small piece of the project. I always call it low-hanging fruit. What's that thing that you can trust them with to start building more trust, to start building that over time? Trust them with the small things so that you can then trust them with the large things going forward.
mm,
That's how you start to enable that. And over time, I have to say, over time, it will happen. I was one of those leaders. When I was a new leader, I was afraid to delegate. Is it going to happen the way I wanted to? Is it going to be? Well, it got to the point where if I wanted to keep growing in my leadership, I had to grow my team. It wasn't a question anymore. So that's what I did. I started small and then I got bigger and bigger to the point where delegating just became part of what I did. and it enables you as a leader. So here's the other thing. As a leader, do you want to work 80 hours a week? My guess is no.
No.
Want to have work-life balance? My guess is yes. Guess what? You won't get it if you don't learn to let go, if you don't learn to empower your team, because you will constantly be the person that has to answer all the questions, that can't take vacation because they can't do
Mhm.
anything without you. Guess what? If you enable that team, if you grow that team, if you develop that team, they will be able to also supplement you. They may bring strengths to the table that you don't have. And that's a good thing. But being vulnerable to that, being open to that, understanding that there may be people on my team that know how to do things better than me, it's all part of leadership. Because at the end of the day, you are the one providing the direction and the vision. They're the ones doing the work. And that's what you
Mm.
need to understand. The competencies that got you, kudos as an individual contributor, you need different competencies as a leader. You've got to be able to let go and let them thrive the same way somebody did for you.
Ooh, you said so many gems and jewels. So y'all better go back and watch this replay because you are dropping them on this Friday. Wow. I mean, I love the fact of what you just said. As a leader, you are the strategy, the long term vision. You have to allow them to do what they do on a day in and day out basis because you can't be everywhere. You're going to end up burning yourself out,
That's
working
right.
80 plus hours a week, and you're going to get nowhere. You're going to start making mistakes and things are going to start falling by the wayside. So it behooves you to take a word that we always said in the army. It behooves you to make sure that you're giving them space to be great and
That's
that
right.
you're supporting them. Your job as a leader is really to support and get the best out of them, help them to see how powerful and great they are. And that's where we need to start. It's like, hey, confidence doesn't come just out of nowhere. Confidence comes from doing.
That's
At
right.
first, when you first start doing things, you're going to be unsure. But if you allow people space to do it and you allow yourself space to start small, as you said, you'll be surprised what happens in a month, in 2 months. It's just compounding successes. And a part of that success you have to understand is failure, is falling
That's
short
right.
and learning the lessons and doing those after action reports. I don't like to use the word postmortems. That's
Yes.
just so so
We
after
call
action.
action reviews when I worked at Shell. Let's have
Yeah,
an action review. What could we have
yeah,
done
yeah, that's perfect.
differently?
Because I don't, yeah, but those things are how we grow, and we're getting some great comments. Daniel, I don't know if you're able to see them, but people are saying, as a team lead, I found this incredibly valuable. Leaders need to hear this, especially the bit on trust and consistency. We have them saying they appreciate how we're combining our disciplines with modern leadership strategies. Great takeaways. So people are loving this stuff. What else would you
Good.
say? Like what? We got the leader side. From the employer
Yeah.
side, they're like, what, I don't have a leader. I do enjoy the environment that I work in, but my leader is not necessarily open to me stepping into my greatness, so to speak. What do you recommend that employee do?
So, few things. That's a great question, by the way. So, learning to manage up is a skill. Peter Drucker, great author, he has a small book. It literally is about this thick. Go get it if you haven't read it. It's called Managing Up. Couple of things. Just like I mentioned that leaders need to understand themselves, as an employee, you need to understand as well. If this leader is maybe not trusting, not preventing, understand the why. Do your best to try to understand what space this leader might be in. Did they trust before and got burned? Is it something that, well, if I let go of control, I won't get the acclimates because they need the recognition. Try to
Mm,
understand their why to make this a win-win conversation. Because when you have the conversation with the leader, if it is about them and that's their why, and you make it about you, they're not going to hear you. But if you understand their why and you understand what they're coming from, I'm going to use the example that maybe they got burned before. Maybe they trusted someone and the person didn't get it done. Here's what you can do. You can go in and say, I would love to work and partner with you on this project. I know in the past that may not have turned out well, but here's what I've done. And here's what I will do to ensure the success of this project. Lay out a plan, lay out some milestones. If the person is one that's, hesitant to trust because they're hesitant to let go, then what you can do is approach it a different way. You can say, hey, I've seen you. You're working so many hours. You've got so much on your plate. I want to help you with some of that work. I'm going to turn it over to you. So they're still going to get those accolades, but I want to help you. You're going to become that person's number two. Every leader needs a number two. And
Yes.
then guess what? That leader is now going to start coming to you. That leader is going to start trusting you because, oh, this person's helping me. So it is important to understand your leader's why in terms of why they're not giving you responsibilities. Try to understand what you can do to foster that. It's all about relationship building. It is about building the relationships that you need. Now, if you do those things and you say, Danielle, I've tried, it's still not working. I'm just going to have a blunt statement for you right now. It may be time for you to find a different leader. I'm not saying you need to leave your organization. I'm saying you may need to find and identify a different leader. When I was in human resources, I had mentors that were not in human resources. I had mentors that were operational leaders. They were vice presidents in the organization. They weren't in HR because I wanted to be strategic. And I knew that our HR department wasn't viewed as such. So I said, okay, I can't find somebody in my department if that's where I want to be, if that's how I want to be seen. I need to find someone else. So you may need to find a mentor or a sponsor outside of your department that will give you what you need in order to succeed in your role. Last but not least, there's a time and a place for everything. I was one of those people that I would change environments. I would change organizations because I wanted to learn and I wanted to grow. And sometimes you do reach that ceiling and you're like, I don't know that I can get any more here. Not because I had bad leaders, but because the organization wasn't moving as quickly as I wanted to move. So again, as an employee, first, I would say, try to work with your leader. Second, if that doesn't work, try to find a mentor or a sponsor somewhere else in the organization that can give you the growth you need. And then third, again, you may need to look at a different environment altogether and decide, is this still the right environment for me as to when I joined that organization?
Man, I love the phased approach. Yeah, like I said, we can talk all day, but I know I said 30 minutes. All right, so I'm gonna hold myself to that, even though I do not want to, because this is such an exciting and engaging conversation for me. So I
So, Jevon, if
appreciate
I could
you.
say one more thing before we end, one more
Absolutely,
thing. We
please.
didn't talk about this a lot, but I can't stress enough work-life balance. And I know a lot of people say there's no such thing. There is. As a C-suite executive, my team will tell you when I was on vacation and they didn't, they figured it out because I delegated. That is another plus. Again, make sure if you are a leader on this call, take your time. If you're an employee on this call, take your time. Nobody's, tombstone says, I worked 80 hours a week, rah, rah, rah. That's not what's going to
Right.
get you to heaven. What you need to do is make sure that your family, your friends, whatever is important to you has as much balance in your life as your work and as your job, because that's where you're going to get value then when you go into the office that day, is because you have found that balance within yourself. So I just wanted to add that because I don't want to lose sight of the fact that that is also part of having a culture where you thrive, is making sure that you're giving yourself that grace to take time off when you need it.
No, absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned it, and that also speaks to the importance of a part of an environment where people want to work is cross collaboration, cross training, and people understanding everyone's roles, how their role fits in. What
That's
can
right.
I do if this person's out? How can I step in? Step up. Like those things really help people to stay longer at organizations.
That's
When
right.
I understand and I'm learning all these different skills, because often we see, and especially in larger orgs, that people are so siloed in what they do that even
Yes.
though they came in maybe having all these grand skills, they start to lose it and they start to only be able to do this one piece. So we got to be able to expand that for them and allow them to step into what they were excited about in the first place. So thank you so much for bringing that up, because that balance is important, and also making space and making it okay, making it cultural to say when you're on vacation, you better not be at that
That's
computer.
right.
You better not be answering those emails. So I love that you mentioned that. I think that is so very important. I get it. You all love what you do, but you also need to love yourself enough to step away, so you
That's
can
right.
be refreshed and be present in the moments. So
For sure.
thank you so much for your time, Danielle. This has been phenomenal. How can the people connect with you?
So several ways. So my website, www.talentergy, it's talent, ERGY. So it's talentwithenergy.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, both under my company and under Danielle Lombard Sim. So you can connect with me either way. Jevon, thank you so much for having me as a guest speaker today. I absolutely love this topic and I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm looking forward to more. And all of those who tuned in, we appreciate you so much for your engagement. Continue to drop those comments. Continue to tell us how you create an environment where people want to work in, or any questions you may have about creating that environment. We will answer, we will respond. Until next time, everyone,